Welcome, dear Thrivers, to another Thriver Talk where we discuss quantum tools and understandings that can reduce your recovery time by months, years, or even decades so that you can heal effectively from the inside out in fast and direct ways. And today I have the lovely Rowena who is going to come forward and share her story. So thank you, Rowena, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Mel. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous to have you. And I love your story, and I think it's beautiful that you're going to share it with others. So let's just jump straight in and share your story and who the abuser was and how that all got started in your life.
Yeah, so um, going right back, really, I had a very difficult relationship with my mum over all the years I can remember, really. Um, I was always trying to placate her, trying to help her to feel better, trying to please her, all of these elements which then were in my later relationships, but also kind of walking on eggshells. She was very angry, very entitled. It was a very difficult and unsafe environment to be in for a young child, and someone who was very sensitive herself and an introvert and a private person. Um, so uh, yeah, just a
Yeah.
very, very painful, difficult environment to be in for so many
And
years.
then, absolutely awful. And then how did that lead on in your adult life?
I think so many parts of that led on to the kind of relationships I chose. I found out much later that actually I was replicating the same dynamics with my partners, with my friendships, um, always choosing someone who was very like my mother, and becoming a familiar um, person to try and fix them or help them feel better or please them or do things for them at the detriment of myself, really. And also being amongst very angry, well, my partners were all alcoholics or had issues, were very difficult, but it felt familiar to me. But it was uh yeah, incredibly painful and left left me completely broken and a shell of myself, but not really not knowing not knowing what myself was, really, or hidden. It was hidden away so deeply. Um,
Because it's normal. It's like it's survival, and you just think that's your life because you don't know any different. So, before you came into our wonderful community, what was the situation or the relationship that brought you, I guess, to your knees?
it was a combination, really, of both situations with my mother, but especially my marriage breaking down. Um, and desperately wanting to know more about what was going on because I knew something wasn't right. I was so ill. Um, I'd been to see doctors, I'd been to have all sorts of counselling, all the way through from when I was at university. So, for issues with my mother, and then carrying on through issues with my partners, and not knowing what was going on. And so frantically trying to find out and looking online. I remember being at work one day and not doing any work. I was working in a college and just trying to find out what were these behaviors. He's doing this and he's doing that, and what is this? And leaving and coming
Mm.
back, and the lies, the deceit, the feeling mad, not, and I came across one of your articles which spoke about narcissism. I'd never heard the term, and codependency. And suddenly, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. This is absolutely something. And it then made me read another one and another one. And then I came across your videos. and the video with you and your son, and I have a son. He was about 8 at the time, and everything was just collapsing. And suddenly, this felt like um, uh, a, an understanding of something that was real and something that made sense. And I was hungry for understanding. And that's what brought me to you. And then I read pretty much all of your articles and also how you responded to others. It felt so kind and so understanding and so loving. And I just felt I wanted to do more. And then my marriage was completely over, and I didn't have any money hardly, but I think I sold a painting at the time, and I thought, right, this is the time. This is a really good sign. And I signed up for NARP, and it was the best thing that I ever did. And I signed up for NARP
Mm.
because partly because I knew there was a lifetime community of support, and I thought I would need it my whole life. And or I just didn't want something to end after 2 months, or 3 months. So I needed to know that there was a safe place to be. And so I signed
Mm.
up for NARP. Yeah, that's what brought me to you.
So when you started working with the Quantum Freedom Healings, the modules in NARP, how long did it take for you to start getting a change or a shift?
It was very quick. Um, it was very quick because I started to feel things, and I think part of being with narcissists all your life is that you don't know what to feel.
Yeah.
It's like even my feelings were owned by someone else. I felt like my mother, they were her feelings, or she claimed them, everything was hers, even that. And so actually being able to feel my own feelings and recognizing, oh God, these are my own feelings, that was very quick.
Mm.
And it brought on a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, a lot of sadness, but a lot of relief, a huge amount of relief. So yeah, that was almost instant. And then other things started happening as I carried on with the NARPing.
So what was the most significant changes that you were experiencing with, because you obviously were going to go through a battle and all the normal breakdowns that happen in narcissistic abuse. So what was it that it gave you the courage? Did it give you the
Mm.
tools?
Oh
Just, yeah,
yes,
in your own words, describe, how that process was for you.
it gave me the companionship as well and the trust that I was in a safe place. It gave me the space inside as well. So it was clearing up things that I didn't even. I think what happens with NARP is that it happens in layers as well. So it's not all at
Yeah.
once. You clear up one thing, and then you see the great results in your life. So I started to feel hopeful again. My relationship with my son got much more healthy, much better. I was able to eat again. I was able to put on weight again because I'd lost so much weight. I looked really haggard, and something I even remembered, I lost half of my eyebrows through stress. I'm laughing now, but oh gosh, I was in such a state. So I was able to
I was the
think about
same.
eating.
Lost,
Oh,
became a walking skeleton, lost all the hair. My hair was falling out in clumps. Yeah.
yes,
And a lot of people
yeah,
relate to that. The stress is
yeah.
so horrible.
And the anxiety and not being able to go out, feeling terrified about being out amongst people. I don't know how I even did my job. I don't think I did very well. And I did actually lose my job at one point, which was turned out to be a blessing. But so it helped me to take this is a huge thing, to understand about how I was living from other people's validations of me. And it was massive for me to take, my attention off others, especially the narcissists in my life, and actually put it onto me and know that it has nothing to do with them. All of these things happened. I had the power to change myself, and little by little, or to discover who I really am. And so over time, my my thoughts about others and their effect on me, it kind of neutralized. It didn't matter anymore. So yeah, so I started to become able to think more clearly, to make plans, to feel hopeful, to start up the creative things that I love, to even get in touch with my passions again and to not feel guilty about it, and to know that I could, when I was feeling guilty about things like that, I could just take that to a module and heal that. Um, and in an ongoing way. And in being in the forum, asking questions in a way that I knew was a positive way, and I wasn't ranting and all this happened, and I wasn't surrounded by others who were saying, how terrible it is, and how we were looking for, and we are always in the community looking for ways to heal and to make things better. It's very, very solution focused, and that's brilliant. It's clear, clear, clear. And I was helped so much, in I put so many questions and celebrations as well. I shared so many celebrations and was always encouraged in the forum, which was a really great thing for me. Yeah, and
I
still
love that.
is.
That's one of the most amazing parts of the forum is, the success that inspires others and keeps others
Yeah.
hopeful. And it's like a wind under the wings. It's just really, really beautiful. So in your separation and when you started healing from the inside out and having those quantum tools, because a lot of people really struggle with separation and, rebuilding their lives. What was your journey there?
In rebuilding my life with the tools. Um,
Yeah. Well, even just in the separation too, how that went and how long was it, or was it around the same time when you were using NARP, or did you start using NARP before you separated? Like, what was the timeline?
no, I used NARP after I
Yeah,
was separated. Yeah, so everything really started. I was reading articles and things
yeah,
before, but then everything really
yeah.
started afterwards. And and also I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, I started eating. Um, but I was able to have the space then, to really spend time with the modules and um, have time for myself and my son. So that was a really quick turnaround, but it's
Mhm.
taken 6 years. I think it's 6 years actually since I started
Mm.
NARP.
Mhm.
It hasn't taken me 6 years to get this well, but it's a continued thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
But what's been so great is from the moment I started NARP, it's been a forward positive trajectory always and still is. So
Mm.
it was the best decision I made. And from that point on, things just started changing, little things and more and more and more. And they were big things, really. And then you almost kind of
Mm.
forget where you were. And so there's more and more. And when I think back to how I was 6 years ago, I can hardly relate to that person now. Um, it feels like another world. But I have lots of tender respect for
Mm.
what she went through, what I went through. Um,
Of
but it does
course.
feel so far away now. And I never thought then, well, I didn't even have that understanding, that this could possibly be
Mm.
my life now, which is so much better and getting
Mm.
better all the time. Yeah.
Mm. And
Healthy
well,
friendship.
six years is nothing in relation to an entire
Oh
lifetime
my
of
gosh.
being narc
Yeah.
abused and being codependent and handing our power away. But yeah, and I've seen your journey over the years in
Hmm.
this community. And
Yes.
what I loved about you was you lent in, you were always active in the community, you were asking questions, you were very, very serious about rebuilding your life from the inside out. And you've done an amazing job at that. It's really beautiful. But yeah, if you were, and I ask everybody this, well, recently I've started because I think these are really good questions. What to you was the worst thing about NARP? I'll reverse the questions.
Worst thing. Um, I was actually thinking about this, and I think the most challenging thing for me about NARP was that it, it's funny because it's almost like it was saying to me, okay, here's another situation. So here's another situation. What are you going to do this time? So you get put back in similar situations and you've been narping, and it's like a chance to behave differently, and you know it, and you do behave differently, but it's to start with. Very initially it feels very unfamiliar, but it's amazing when you do, when you're back in situations. It could be in work or with friends or with family members. Suddenly you've been napping, and here you are, and you set boundaries and you speak up, and it's, God, it's amazing. But to begin with, it's a challenge because it's so unfamiliar, behaving in this way. And I used to feel shame and guilt, and how could I do that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what have I done? And so I used to narp on that. But it was that
Yeah.
that upward trajectory all the time. It's also felt buzzing and amazing to be able to do it, and I knew it was the
Yeah.
right thing. It's a bit like doing the whole narp. It starts where you have to really intentionally try, but then something compels you, and it's like, you speak about, it's inviting in source, which is already here, but activating, inviting,
Mm.
and that takes you by the hand. And suddenly I found myself looking at myself being in these situations, speaking out, and I thought, oh my God, and it's amazing. And that strengthens you for the next time. And to the point where making a boundary or setting a boundary, sorry, is not hard. It just becomes second nature. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, it's right for me. Doesn't matter. And I love when you say, you're willing to lose it all to get it all. I really
Yeah.
am in any area of my life now. So it was a challenge to start with, to actually be in those positions and think, oh, God, here I am again. What am I going to do this time? I'm behaving differently because I wasn't even
Yeah.
thinking about it. Where I just behaved differently. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
beautiful.
hope that makes
Beautiful.
sense.
There's
So,
so
but it was
it,
a
it makes
challenge.
total sense, and there's so much in that. And for
Yeah.
people that are listening, NARP, what we're talking about is the actual Quantum Freedom Healing modules, which are like a deep inner meditation that picks up your trauma and your false patterns, and it lets it go, and it brings in the source of light, your higher self, your higher consciousness, infinite wisdom, into that space to give you a shift out of the old self into the true self. So what happens is you start becoming this new self, this true self, who is taking right action where you never used to, and you felt diminished, small, and scared. You now grow, because when you change, your entire life changes, especially when you change from the inside in your being. And that's exactly what Rowena was talking about. And you're right, at first, because it's not familiar. We're changing. We become unrecognizable when we do the modules. But what happens is your life starts shaping in an incredible way. So I think you described that absolutely perfectly. Okay, so what to you was the best thing about NARP and the healings?
Um, the best thing for me was a kind of reparenting for myself right at the beginning when I used to do the modules. And I remember writing about this in the group as well. Um, my younger self used to come and give me a hug. There's a part in that where other parts of ourselves, or the young parts of ourselves, might come in and be with us, and they're in the light as well. And that used to be very moving for me, and it felt very real, very real. And I started to, it became about um, helping her as well, my younger self. And so this reparenting,
Absolutely.
because the difficult relationship with my mother, I became my own mother, and I really felt that. I really felt that and I still do. So it's the reparenting for me, and the kindness, and also self-partnering, and being responsible for myself. And and I really am, and I don't look to others now. I have much healthier friendships. I know that there was a difficult situation. I didn't see my mum for 15 years, and she did become very ill, and she passed away, and I hadn't seen her. And I've mentioned before that I feel so much closer to her now, and there's a loving, loving um sense that's around our relationship now. It's a soulful relationship that we never had when she was here.
Mm,
And that's thanks to
I love
NARP as
that.
well, I think. And
Mm.
I
And we can only heal on the inside to be able to get that kind of resolution, because you know what can be so consistent is that when a deceased parent who was a narcissist, that there's such a terrible trauma that happens from that, because there was never able to be reconciliation with that person. But with NARP, and what we do is we reconcile on the inside and we get our upshift and our freedom, and then we can feel them as a beautiful entity on the other side who, you know, really pushed our wounds up so that we could heal them, which in at the highest level is the ultimate level of love, is to push us back into our own self-love and self-partnering. So it's gorgeous that you've reached that level. And I've got goosebumps all over as we're talking about that, because that's only the inner work that can get us to that level. So beautiful. Yeah. And, you know, speaking of that, the ex-narcissist, you know, what kind of feelings do you have about him now?
oh, none. None
I
at all.
love
It's
that.
completely neutral. I don't think about him, and it's so interesting because at the
Done.
time I do remember the clinging and I remember the obsessive thoughts and I remember desperation and oh gosh, no
Mm.
self-respect. I had no self-respect at the time.
Yeah.
And now, honestly, I'd never think it's a world away. It's a completely different vibration. It really is. I
Yeah.
completely neutral. Yeah, nothing.
And we can't think our way there. We've got to detox it from the inside. You can't stop obsessive stinking thinking with more thinking. It's impossible, you know? So I love that too. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous to see. So how long, you know, since starting NARP did that kick in where he became irrelevant and that stinking thinking about him was gone? How long did it take?
And it was quite quick. Um, it eased very quickly. And then I think, just a matter of months, just a matter of months.
Yeah.
That was easier actually than my family, my mum.
Yeah.
But so no, actually, I remember once about a year later walking down the road, and I didn't know because I never looked him up. I never looked up to see where he was living, what he was doing. I never did that, even though I was perhaps tempted at first. I never did it. Um,
Yeah.
but I had in previous times before I started NARP, when he left and came back and things like that.
Mm.
But yeah, so I was walking down the road in the town where I live, and he walked in the other direction, and I noticed that it was almost like he was in a haze, and there was nothing triggered in my body. I just carried on walking. There was nothing, and afterwards I felt I was completely neutralized. It was so strange, but it was so there was because there was no recognition. I didn't say anything to him. He didn't to me, and I didn't really look at him. But I knew he was there. I knew he was there, and I knew that then I kind of graduated from that one, and from all of them as well. Yeah, so that was amazing. I never thought I'd ever get to that point. Yeah, he was my
Gorgeous.
world and everything. Yeah,
Our
in
stories
a
are so
terrible way.
similar. Stories are so similar in many, many ways, because you really went through that destruction as well. You really did. You know, it's hard for people to look at Rowena now and realize just how down and out and emaciated and how broken she really was. And to look at you today. And also to Rowena, share with everybody how old you are, because you look about 22.
Oh gosh, no, I think no, I'm 50. Yeah, I was 50 this year. So, and I feel better and happier and healthier and more wonderful, than I ever did before I started the NARP. Even before
Yeah.
anything happened, I feel better than
Yeah.
I ever have, Yeah. And that's all thanks to NARP, absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
And there's
when the trauma comes out of our cells, you know what, and the light comes in, what happens is our cells are able to assimilate oxygen and nutrients, and we eat better, we look better, we feel better, we make better choices. But I literally do believe that it reverses aging. And, you know, like, look at you, it's incredible. And I know too, people that knew me when I was 40, when I was in the absolute breakdown, and even prior, I've run into them and they've said to me, I'm nearly 60. And they're like, oh my God, you look younger than what you did back then. So it's just amazing to live this lifestyle. And speaking of which, you are on your Dharma. You're doing, I call Dharma like our soul work, what we
Yes.
are called to do. And I love what you're doing, as a lot of NARPers are. They break through into this. So share with the audience what you're doing with the
Well,
watchers.
so I do workshops for women, and they're for well-being and friendship, and there's meditation. They're mainly focused on intuitive painting, but it's about movement, it's about empowerment, it's about um, sharing and celebration, and it's also great for HSPs, so sensitives, introverts, anyone who has some
Highly
anxiety,
sensitive people, HSPs, yeah.
highly
Which is
sensitive. Yeah,
people that get abused by narcissists. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And there are women who have experienced similar, and but not all, but it's just so amazing, and it's international. So we have people from Cornwall, where I live, and Nashville, and the Netherlands. It's just, I feel so happy, and it's just so enriching. It's just gorgeous to all be there together, and spend time together. And it's just a gentleness. It's such a gentle space, but very creative, and sparks off all sorts of other creative ideas and possibilities. Yeah.
So, so beautiful. And okay, so, before cleaning out from the inside, how possible would this have been in your life?
Oh, not at all. I didn't have any space for anything else. I was just barely living, barely surviving, and everything was about trying to ease the pain that I was feeling. It's visceral, and I know you mentioned, Mel, about how, well, for me, it was like glass, shards of glass in my veins. It was awful. So there's no way there's any space for creativity, but I knew it was there. And I've always known, ever
Yes.
since a young child, I've loved art and poetry and literature, and I've always wanted it. So it's always been hidden, hidden, hidden amongst all these layers of things. And now there's all that space for all those yeses, as you've
Mm.
said, and I love that, for all the yeses to come. And they are. And they keep coming. And
Mm.
it's just so great that, I keep um doing the speedy shifts as well when I need to, and I do
Mm.
need to, but I know that they work, and I know that uh I know how to work with what's happening and what comes up, and I know not to be derailed by anything, and it's all a blessing. It's a good thing, that when triggers come up, it's such a good thing that they've come up, because I think, oh, here's something else, and uh,
Mm.
it might not feel great in the moment, but I know through experience now of doing this for
Mm.
so long that it's all okay, and I know that on the other side of that, it's going to be even better. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, because the trigger is showing us what's blocking us from our next expansion and who we were designed really to be, which is to thrive. We get it out, the light comes in, we go into the next graduation. Well, Rowena, you are a beautiful example of that and such an inspiration. And I always love hearing from you and seeing you, because your energy is just so angelic, truly, and gorgeous. But you're an angel, with power now, which is, rather than just that,
yes,
HSP, highly sensitive person who just,
mm-hmm.
loves everybody, and that whole love and
Mm.
light, and everybody will teach me
Uh,
how I treat them, because it doesn't work. And so many gorgeous souls like yourself, who I've seen in the last 20 years nearly, who are just beautiful souls who have been abused, because we've had to get balls or ovaries, like
yes,
literally. We've had to grow up and heal up to have boundaries and take care of ourselves. And then we can still be gorgeous with an open heart, but we've got limits, and you've
yeah.
got them.
And that's so important, because I used to try and not be who I was, perhaps because I am sensitive, and I was very different from my mother, and my partners and everything. And I used to think there's something wrong with me. I was told there was something wrong with
Well,
me.
you were the
But what seems to
scapegoat because of being a sensitive, and that's exactly what happens.
But then
Yeah,
sensitives quite often try to hide it or put on all these bravado faces. But it's not, it's about becoming a skilled sensitive, and that's what NARP helps you to do as well. So it's becoming ever more your authentic, sensitive self. You don't have to discard your sensitivity. You can't anyway if you're going to be authentic. I can't be any other way.
correct,
But I can be
correct.
strong and sensitive and
Yes.
gentle and a real strength
Mm,
and an empowered
mm,
one. So that's so important. So it's not about changing your natural nature because it's being even more of who you are. So I'm even more skilled at being my true self now through NARP and not having to disown it or hide it or put on another facade or to try and brave
yeah.
through the day. I can be myself and be strong with it, and
Mm.
that's really important to me. Yeah.
It's everything, the freedom to really be ourselves without masks, without fear, without defenses. That means the world is your paradise, and you're really modeling that. And I'm so proud of you and how far you've come. I love that. So, Rowena, if you were to say, what would be your closing words of wisdom or support to people?
Um, I think just to trust that it can be it'll be the best thing. It's certainly been the best thing that I ever did, and it's that trajectory. It always gets better. It can be hard at first, but
Of
but
course.
little steps very quickly become huge leaps. And I would say stick with it, and you'll be transformed in the most authentic way, and it's got such integrity. And and I think what I love about NARP as well is that there's a kindness with it, and the next thing comes up when you're
Mm,
ready for it. And so you
mm.
can always handle what happens, and you recognize you can, and you feel stronger at each step of the way. So uh, um
And you've got this
it's
amazing, incredible community with us supporting you, which is
all the
so
way through.
important all the
Yeah.
way through. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a very tight, close community, which is just beautiful. And we've dealt with everything you could imagine. People go, well, you haven't seen my story. And we're like, well, yes, we have, because we're dealing with insane, ridiculous people who are narcissists. We've seen it all.
Yeah.
Rowena, thank you so much for coming forward. And I know you're up really late, and it's such a joy to have you. And we appreciate you so much in our community and for doing this interview. And I hope everybody that you've enjoyed this, that you've got something out of it, and most of all, that it can give you hope that
Yeah.
narcissistic abuse doesn't have to be a life sentence. And there is a thriver life after it when you get the right help. So thank you,
Oh,
Rowena.
thank you so much, Mel, for everything and everyone in the community. It has been a real lifesaver for me, and such it's such a blessing. Thank you. Yeah.
Lots of love, everybody. Bye-bye.